nature is all around us. I think if everybody just looks out their window right now, notice how the everyday nature around you makes you feel, and people consistently write that, wow, I didn't realize there was so much nature around me. I'm surprised at how much better it made me feel.
We really believe in, if you're going to do something to a park, do it with those people who've been using it and advocating for it the whole time. So anytime we put programs in parks citywide, we always do it in partnership with park stewardship organizations, block clubs, churches. Like, hey, what are you guys looking for? And when do you want it? When doesn't conflict with stuff that you already have going on?
Everywhere you go in Detroit, somebody has reused something. You know, people look at Detroit and they see a city of ruins. And I don't see that. I see a place where I can take different things and create something really beautiful.
Welcome back to the Metro. I'm Robin Vincent. Huge numbers of Americans took to the streets over the weekend for so-called hands-off protests. People were condemning the Trump administration and many of its policies, including cuts to the National Park Service and other public lands. Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency has reduced staff that oversees public lands by hundreds of people. A judge ordered those positions to be reinstated, but it's unclear how many people have actually returned to work. The White House has vowed to fight those rulings. Advocates, meanwhile, are bracing for additional cuts. This upheaval has raised concerns about the health and survival of America's public lands, from popular national parks like Yosemite and Yellowstone to national lake shores like Michigan's Sleeping Bear Dunes. Tom Ulrich knows the latter well. He was the deputy superintendent for Sleeping Bear Dunes for more than 2 decades. Ulrich retired in 2023. He joins us now to discuss challenges facing America's public lands. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Robin.
So before we get into the challenges that are facing our public lands right now and Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, for those who've never been, could you paint a picture of Sleeping Bear Dunes and what's so special about it?
Oh, Sleeping Bear Dunes has 400-foot-high sand dunes looking out directly over Lake Michigan, looking over the sparkling lake at sunset is a view unlike any other. And then it's got about 26 inland lakes, rivers, excellent beaches. It's the kind of place where I would bring my friends from Western parks here, and they would say, Tom, I had no idea.
I love that. Especially as someone, I was living in the West near Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and I love hearing that about Sleeping Bear. Now, public lands managed by the Park Service, they've long been understaffed. Since 2010, the National Park Service has experienced a 20% decrease in full-time staff. But we know people keep coming. The parks recorded over 325 million visits in 2023. This is a big part of the American economy. Before we discuss what current staffing issues could mean for the parks, could you tell me, Tom, what was your experience retaining staff at Sleeping Bear Dunes?
Well, Sleeping Bear Dunes is a fairly sought-after park, so we usually got pretty good application numbers. The budget fluctuates over time, depending on administrations and economy, et cetera. And so we would experience mild fluctuations over time. If anybody recalls the Clinton-Gore era of reducing the size of government, they successfully reduced the size of government at that time. But unlike the current administration, they did it in concert with the agencies and came in and worked very closely with us to decide where those cuts should take place instead of this crazy broad hacking that's being done right now.
So that would be one of your criticisms, is that this is being done in a chaotic way, the cuts to the National Park Service and other federal agencies.
Oh, absolutely. The way it's being done, it puts me to mind that either the folks going about it are completely incompetent, and want to carry out the mission of the Park Service, but have no clue how to do it in a way that reduces the budget somewhat, or it's being done maliciously in an effort to dismantle the agency itself and other government agencies, of course, as well.
Now, for someone who asks why we need more folks working in our national parks and other public lands, could you explain the roles of workers who've been fired or have taken buyouts? Is it possible some of their jobs were expendable?
Oh, absolutely not. The people who were fired to begin with were only done out of convenience. Those folks were in their first year as new hires, and so they were a little bit easier to fire, even though that order has been reversed, as you pointed out in your introduction. They went about choosing those people just because they were in a probationary period. There was no judge as to the merit of the position, and certainly not the person. Those folks received a letter saying that they were being removed for performance or conduct issues when neither were present. My friend Julia, who worked for the national parks for less than a year in the job she was hired into, was one of the best employees I've ever worked with in 35 years, and she was fired with that notation in the letter.
This is the Metro on WDET. We're talking about the health and future of America's public lands. Our guest is Tom Ulrich. He's the former deputy superintendent for Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. Tom, let's zoom in on the effects on Michigan's public lands. Trump and Elon Musk's cuts to the Park Service could affect the endangered piping plover project that's at Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. Could you talk about that?
Certainly. So the cuts and the freeze that is taking place where seasonal hiring offers were rescinded and frozen for a period of time. And even though now we're able to resume the attempt to hire, it's certainly not going to be possible to hire all the seasonal employees. The seasonal employees of the national parks carry out the majority of the service and resource work, the field-oriented work. So when you go to a park and you're greeted and you go to a clean bathroom and you get a ranger talk and you go out and see some wildlife that's endangered, like the piping plovers, the folks who make sure all of those things are there for you are the ones who will not be at the parks this year, because the seasonal employees are the ones that are more in the field early in their career. And those are the ones that we've been prevented from hiring. So the plovers are being put in danger, and everyone's visit to a national park this summer is being put in equal danger.
I want to go back a couple of years to the previous Trump administration. In 2017, President Trump made other moves that angered public lands advocates. It reduced Utah's Bears Ears National Monument by 85% and Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument by about half. Now, the Trump administration did that as part of an effort to open the lands to drilling and mining. And now advocates say that the administration is likely continuing that focus. President Trump recently signed an executive order to create a sovereign wealth fund. And the concern is that he'll potentially liquidate public lands to finance that fund. I wonder what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's a very real concern, considering the way this administration is going about managing our public lands and rolling back all environmental regulations. We talked earlier about the short-term impacts of what they're doing to the government agencies like the National Park Service in terms of, plovers being in danger on the beaches this summer and your visit not going well. But the longer term, of course, is putting public lands at risk by either privatizing them or removing their protections and keeping them federal or giving them away to state and local interests. None of those serve our interests as a nation very well. The national parks are set aside so that all Americans can enjoy them, not just so that people can profit from them, or like a county park or state park, they're managed for the local folks. National parks are different. Congress and the president decided they were important to everyone, and threatening that is something that is tantamount to, reversing the history of this nation.
Now, the backdrop to all this upheaval at our national parks is that Interior Secretary Doug Burgum issued an order just last Thursday. He's directing national parks to remain open and accessible. He says that means there will be proper staffing to make that happen, but not everyone is convinced that that is possible. What do you think this could mean? Do you think this directive will put additional strain on current staff?
I think the directive is ridiculous. It is not possible to operate the national parks to the national park standard that people come to expect, with the numbers of people that visit them, with the numbers of staff that their moves have allowed us to hire. So they can issue the order, but it's not possible to do that.
Tom, I, as I mentioned earlier, I lived at the gateway of two national parks in Wyoming near Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Park. And where I lived, roughly 97% of the land is public, protected land. And, one thing that struck me living there is how people's love for public lands transcends politics. That love united people across the political spectrum. I saw it felt like on a daily basis. Could you talk about that and what you think it could mean for the future of public lands?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think all Americans enjoy and benefit from the public lands. And if those public lands are removed, I think people will be very unhappy, and in many cases, their livelihoods and family traditions will be upended or not possible any longer. That's true equally for the employees who serve those public lands. I know that in my 35-year career, it was not just a job. I did it because I loved and believed in the national parks, and that's true for the great majority of the employees of the National Park Service. And these people are not going to be able to serve the public in the way that they have long loved to do and that the public has come to expect. So I think people are going to have a rude awakening when they go to visit their public lands this summer, and they may well demand reversal of this, and I hope they do.
In the last 30 seconds we have, I've talked to other people who work for the National Park Service, and they say that they felt like, true public servants, true stewards of the land. I'm guessing that aligns with your philosophy as well, working for the National Park Service.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's horrifying to see what's being done to the national parks and the people who work there and want to serve the mission of the Park Service. As I said earlier in the interview, I'm not sure if it's incompetence or being malicious, but the way this administration is going about their attempt to shrink the government, which is probably a laudable goal, but doing it in this way amounts to criminality, in my opinion.
Tom Ulrich is the former deputy superintendent for Sleeping Bear Dunes. Tom, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you, Robin. I was glad to participate.
From the WDET newsroom, former prosecutor Christina Hines is running for Congress as a Democrat next year. She plans to challenge Republican Congressman John James. Hines ran for Macomb County prosecutor last year, but lost to GOP incumbent Pete Lucido. And Detroit's annual Motor City Makeover begins next month. People who want to help clean up and beautify neighborhoods can pick up supplies from the Butzel Family Center tomorrow. Coming up, the University of Michigan, along with colleges across the country, has been getting rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion offices. That comes amid pressure from the federal government. We'll hear about why and how DEI changed colleges during its 8-year existence. This is the Metro. Stay with us.